It's a big sports weekend in Vegas, which means more people are in town than usual to play big, high-stakes cash. I buy in with 4 5K flags for the 100-100 game with a $100 big blind ante. We're in for $20,000 to start. 100-100 is usually the highest stakes game running, but with so many people ready to fire, there's actually a bigger 100-200 game going on in Bobby's room as well. Typically the game starts at 10. I'm not able to get in until a little late, so the session for me starts at 10:40 in the morning. The stakes are massive, and I'm on a vendetta to book a sizable win. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. 10 minutes in, we're dealt pocket deuces on the button. Under the gun +1 raises to 300. Under the gun +2 calls. We're getting a good price with a hand that's easy to play post flop while we're in position. I call with mallards. The big blind calls as well. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It comes 9-3 deuce with 2 spades. Right off the bat, we've got bottom set in a multi-way pot. Checks to us. There are a lot of draws out there. We're not slow playing. We're going to build this pot from the get-go. I bet 800. I'd like to get at least 1 caller, maybe more if the dealer promises to put out a blank on the turn. The big blind calls. He's someone who's visiting from out of town. I've never played with him before, but he's clearly here to have a good time and get involved in the action as much as possible. Under the gun +1 and under the gun +2 fold. We're heads up. The turn is the 4 of clubs. It completes some straights, but at least the flush doesn't get there. The big blind checks. We can't let this card scare us. We're going to continue going for value. Even if we're up against a straight, we'll have outs. I bet 2,000. The opponent only has a little over 6,000 total. I'd like to get all of it in now if possible, before the board gets even scarier. The big blind is on the same page. He snap rips it for 6,400. Maybe we're beat, but I'm not getting away for 4,400 more. This is going to be a big all-in pot.
Alright. It's up to you.
How big is your hand? That's not good.
I got a set.
We're immediately in an all-in pot over $15,000, and it sounds like the big blind's in terrible shape against us based on his reaction to seeing our set. We still don't know what he has, but he chose to run it twice. It's been a while since I've been able to scoop a huge all-in pot. We appear to have an opportunity to do that now. I'm not exactly sure what we have to fade, but hopefully we get 2 clean rivers.
Oh my god, I hit it.
Wow.
Jesus Christ, look at this.
Oh wow. 4 deuce.
Why don't I deal once? Wow. Man, this is so annoying.
The opponent jammed 4 deuce offsuit on the turn for 6,400 after hitting 2 pair. He had 2 outs. We were a 95.5% favorite when we got all the money in, and the opponent absolutely smashes the first river. I'm not quite sure how he's annoyed in this situation. The only thing good about it is that he made the decision to run it twice, which makes this from being excruciatingly painful to slightly less excruciatingly painful.
That's gonna make this hard. Why not once? What the fuck?
Just trying to
Well, why did you do it twice? I said once.
2 outs.
You're so lucky.
I guess so.
You hit it. I was like, what did you hit? I was trying to figure
I
out.
know, exactly. It's the worst shit.
I couldn't figure out what you hit. I was like,
Rather than absorb the opponent's stack into ours, we take our money back. I don't think that I've ever gotten it in better with 1 card to come and ended in a chop. At least we ran it twice, and the game is good. Next, we're dealt pocket sixes under the gun +1. Today, I'm going to open all pocket pairs regardless of position. I raised to 300. Even if we get 3-bet, we'll put on our hard hat, grab a flashlight, and go mining again. The hijack 3-bets to 1,000. We already have a game plan for this scenario. I grab 2 $500 grape chips and make the call as I take back the blackbirds. We're heads up, out of position, in what's already a substantial pot. The flop comes King 6. We drilled a low full house. Hitting a set on the previous flop didn't amount to us winning much since we chopped. We should be able to win a lot if the opponent has trips here. I check as a trap. The hijack recognizes that this is a good flop for his 3-bet range. He downbets to 800. The 7 deuce game is on. There's a decent possibility that's what our opponent has, or some other weak holding. I want to give him some rope if he's bluffing. I flat the 800. I'll make our move on the turn. There's not much to be concerned about other than getting boat over boated, and that almost never happens. Except the last time we started out with a pocket pair and hit a boat. The turn is the deuce of hearts. It's an absolute blank. There's almost no shot that the hijack has us beat. I check again. If the hijack has a king, I expect him to blast. He's suddenly not as interested, and he checks back, indicating that he clearly doesn't have trips. The river is the 10 of clubs. As long as we're not up against pocket 10s, we should have the winning hand. We can't allow this to check through again. I overbet 4,500 to make it appear as if I'm trying to buy the pot with a missed flush draw. Maybe the hijack checks back turn with a high pocket pair like aces or queens that he won't want to give up on after playing the previous street passively. If we can get paid here, I'll feel a lot better about losing the other run out. After nearly a full minute in the tank, the opponent folds. We don't get paid at the end. Still, we win about $2,000. It's always fun to hit big hands and take down pots, no matter what. In this one, we're dealt ace-king offsuit in the cutoff. The action comes around to us. We're going to be opening. I raised to 300. The big blind is Matt Berkey. He just entered the game a little while ago and has a cool 73,000 in front of him. He's not afraid of playing enormous pots. He relishes them, regularly having six-figure swings. Matt 3-bets to 2,000. The dude doesn't care much about $2,000 and could easily be doing this light. We're going to potentially get it all in against him. I 4-bet to 5,500. I'm down at the moment, starting out with 17,200. I once got it in against Matt with ace-king against his ace-8 suited for about 20,000 each. Granted, the stand-up game was on, but I 4-bet ripped it for 19,000 more than his 3-bet for 1,000, and he still called off. You may remember seeing this in the previous vlog. We ran it twice. I won the first run out, then he hit an 8 on the river in the second run out to chop it. That was another rough one in this same room. If he shoves right now, I won't be able to get my chips in fast enough. Maybe Matt's learned from previous mistakes. He folds, we take back our re-raising chips, and 2,000 more. A half hour later, we're dealt pocket 8s under the gun +1. I raised to 300 with the snowmen. The cutoff is the only color. It's the same opponent we flopped the full house against with pocket 6s. We're heads up. The dealer puts out Jack 10-8 rainbow. We've got bottom set on a board that'll ordinarily be great for the opponent. I check to the in-position player, which I'll do about 2/3 of the time with this type of flop, even with sets. The cutoff knows that this is good for his range. He bet 600. Our hand's vulnerable, but we don't want to start piling in money just yet, especially when we're out of position. I play it cool with a call. The turn is the 10 of clubs, giving us our third full house of the day, and we're less than 2.5 hours in. I check to let the opponent hang himself. If he has a straight, he's drawing dead. The cutoff bet's 1,800. He goes with a large sizing. He's saying that he's got a full house, a straight, trips, or maybe he picked up a flush draw, or is continuing to bluff off with a straight draw. We don't want to pump money in if we're up against a better full house. We don't want to scare off semi-bluffs either. When we're up against a large bet, we're not going to check raise often anyway. I call once more. A club on the river could be good for us. The dealer puts out the 6 of hearts. I'll take that one. There aren't any realistic hands that improve to beat us. If we were ahead on the turn, we should still be ahead. I check. There's a strong possibility that we're up against either trips, a straight, or a hand that the opponent may want to triple barrel bluff with since we've totally under-repped our boat. He may consider going huge. Nope. He gives up and checks back. We reveal our hidden 8s full of 10s. It's going to be good 100% of the time when the opponent doesn't bet. The cutoff returns his cards face down, so we don't get to see what he barrel flop and turn with. Maybe he had a hand like ace-jack that he was happy to take to showdown. The quick check back indicates he didn't have trips or better. He might have been semi-bluffing the whole way. Winning a pot over 5,000 is a positive result, even though not scooping that first all in still stings a little. Here we look down at pocket 4s under the gun +2. I raised to 300. A player in middle position calls. The big blind calls as well. 3 of us are going to the flop. It comes 5-4-3 with 2 clubs. It's set number 4 for us. I wasn't hitting sets for a long time in previous high stakes sessions. I apparently saved them all up for today. The big blind checks. This is actually a terrible flop for our range as the pre-flop aggressor. I feign weakness and check to the middle position player. If he checks, there's a high probability that the big blind might rep 2 pair or better on the turn, regardless of what he really has. The middle position player disappointingly checks. The turn is the queen of spades, which is generally a good one for us. The big blind doesn't bite to take a stab as a bluff. He checks. We need to start betting. There's no reason to believe that the player behind us is going to do it for us. I bet 900. If either player has a queen or strong draw, we should be able to get called. Maybe someone won't believe that we have better than one pair and they'll check raise us light. The middle position player folds. The big blind folds quickly as well. We're smashing flops. Unfortunately, when we have everything, it's tough for other people to have hands that they can get involved with. Now we've got pocket aces under the gun +2. Finally, we're playing big and are starting out with premiums as well as hitting things post flop. I raised to 300. I wouldn't mind a customer or two. The cutoff calls, we're heads up out of position, the flop comes ace-jack 5 with 2 diamonds. We've got set number 5 of the day. This could be the trickiest one to try and get value from though, because when we open from early position, we'll connect well when there are 2 high cards out there. I check to try and induce a bluff anyway. The cutoff doesn't fall for it, he checks back. The turn is another 5, giving us a full house. We won't be getting boat over boated this time. I bet 300 to try and squeeze out some money. Cutoff isn't interested, he folds immediately. We win the pot and are up on the session, but we're still struggling to flourish like I would have expected if someone told me that we were going to make 5 sets in 3 hours of 100-100. Next, we're dealt Queen 9 offsuit in the big blind with the stand-up game on. The straddle's also on, so we're playing 100, 100, 200 with a $100 big blind ante. The cutoff raises to 500. I'm looking to win a pot and take my seat. I call for 400 more. We're heads up out of position against the pre-flop raiser. The flop comes 8-7-6 with 2 diamonds. We've got an open-ended straight draw with 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. I check. The cutoff really wants a seat. He bets 1,000. Folding is not an option. I'm debating between check raising and calling since this is a flop that's good for our range and decent for our actual hand. When the opponent goes large, like in this instance, we're going to decrease the frequency in which we check raise though. I call to see if we can improve on the turn. The dealer puts out the jack of spades, which is interesting because now if we hit a non-diamond 10, we'll have the nuts and can maybe stack the opponent if he's holding some other 9 without the queen. I check. I'd love to see a check back, then we can either drill a free river or we can turn our hand into a bluff to steal the pot and sit down. We don't get the check back, the cutoff bet's 2,400. This is getting costly, our draw isn't all that great with the diamonds out there, I'm just not able to give up. I call again with visions of sitting down. This has become a significant pot. The river is the queen of diamonds, we don't improve quite the way we hoped, but we could have just taken the lead. I check. It's possible that the opponent turned top pair that's now been downgraded with a combo like ace-jack or king-jack. He checks back. We turn over our top pair with expectations of winning a high percentage of the time when we don't see a river bet. But the opponent has 8-7 of clubs. He flopped 2 pair. I should have just folded pre-flop and definitely could have folded on the turn. Now I'm down 2,500. With the stand-up game and straddle both on, we're dealt king 7 suited in the small blind. Matt Berkey raises to 1,500 from the cutoff. He's tilted after check calling a $22,000 overbet shove on the turn of a 9-9 4-deuce board with 2 spades and 2 diamonds. He lost to ace-6 of spades on both runouts. It was one of the most bizarre hands that I've ever witnessed. I can't believe he called the shove. He's since added on to have over 100,000 in front of him. Do I really want to get involved with king 7 suited for a large raise pre-flop? I do not. The problem is that we're running out of time to win a pot, otherwise we're going to have to pay out each of our 7 opponents $300 for losing the stand-up game. I call to go to battle, we're heads up out of position, the flop comes queen 8-4 rainbow. Other than some backdoor draws, we brick it. I verbally check because my hands are too far away from the table when I'm standing. I'm excited to see that Matt isn't going to charge us to see a turn, he checks back. The dealer puts out the 6 of clubs, giving us both flush and straight draws. After Matt checks back turn, we've got the green light to bet large as a semi-bluff on a board that's decent for our range, while plenty of strong hands including top pair, sets, and maybe even a straight or 2-pair combos when the stand-up game is on. I go with the large size of 3,000 in purple chips. It's nearly a pot-sized bet. Matt knows that I tend to be on the tighter side, so we should get credit for having a big hand. He calls anyway. It's possible that he picked up a flush draw himself, or he could be slow playing a monster. The river is the 4 of spades, we brick every draw, and the low card pairing makes it less likely that we had a set or 2 pair on the turn. It's a very bad card for us because we won't have a lot of 4s in our range at all. The 2 main types of hands that I put Matt on after he checks back flop, then called our big bet on the turn, are big draws that have now missed, or extremely nutted hands like top set. A large river bluff from us against a guy who just called a $22,000 overbet shove with king high and no draw likely isn't going to be the best option. Matt may be the only person on the planet who likes folding less than me. Rather than bet big in an attempt to tell the story that we've got a monster, which would be less convincing after the river 4, I go tiny with a bet of 1,500. This sizing allows us to risk a lot less and we can still get ace highs and other club draws that miss to fold. If our king high somehow happens to be good, it gives us a better chance at getting to showdown than checking and potentially facing a massive bet from a worse missed flush draw that would cause us to fold. In the instances that we're up against a slow played combo at the top of Berkey's range, we risk and lose a lot less. Berkey snap calls, we reveal that we lost an extra 1,500 on the river, not even being able to get ace king of hearts to fold with our big turn sizing or our small river sizing at the end. Honestly, I think if I bombed it on the river, Matt still would have called when everything misses. Matt wrecks me, gets his seat back, and wins a 5-figure pot. Expanding my range pre-flop and getting somewhat annoying runouts is costing me a lot of money. We pick up King 4 offsuit in the under the gun straddle. It's down to heads up between me and one other player in the stand-up game. I truly hate it. Under the gun +1 raises to 500. Matt calls on the button. I call for 300 more to close the action. 3 of us are seeing the flop. It comes 6-5-3 with 2 hearts. We've got an open-ended straight draw one more time. I check. This is the type of flop that someone who's defending and closing the action is going to hit frequently. Both opponents know it. Under the gun +1 and the button check. The turn is the 10 of diamonds. It's a blank. We're going to have all kinds of sets and 2-pair combos. Plus, we really need to win a seat. Otherwise, we'll be paying out 2,100 to the table. I bet 1,100 on a draw-heavy board to accomplish our goal. Under the gun +1 calls. This is very unfortunate for us. He could have a 10 or some high pocket pair that he checked the flop with for pot control. The button folds. It's down to heads up. We need to improve. The river is the king of spades, giving us top pair. That's not one of the cards I was rooting for to bail us out, but it's probably good enough for us to win as long as we're not up against king 10 or a heart draw containing a king. We no longer need to bluff. We can legitimately bet for value. I bet 1,600. I can tell right away that under the gun +1 isn't excited to see us fire with this sizing. He's got a difficult decision to make. He knows that I have a huge incentive to do my best to win this pot. It'd be great if he paid us off. He folds though. We have to show what we got there with to end the stand-up game. It was a rough couple of orbits, but we don't have to pay the table out, and we get some money back at the end. We avoid losing the $2,100 stand-up game tax, and altogether, it only cost me about $8,500 to do it. What a steal. Next, we're dealt 10-7 suited in the small blind. The button raises to 300. Since the big blind rarely 3-bets and the small blind is actually the same amount as the big blind, I call for 200 more, basically treating it as if I'm closing the action. The big blind calls as well. 3 of us are seeing the flop. We're out of position. It comes queen 10-10. We flop trips. I check. The big blind checks. The button bets 500. There's not much for us to be afraid of. We want to keep the opponent's bluffs in. I call. The big blind folds. We're down to heads up. The turn is the 10 of spades, giving us quads. This has gotten better and better. I check. We'd love to see another bullet fired from the button, but he checks back. He's either got nothing or he thinks he's slow playing a made hand. The river is the 7 of clubs, giving us another pair just in case our quads wasn't good enough. We probably can't get called by anything except in the rare instances our opponent was attempting to play tricky with a queen or overpair. I try to target those hands with an overbet of 3,000. The opponent folds before I get my bet out there. He didn't have anything at all. We don't show our quads. Once more we make a big hand, but once more our opponent doesn't have a hand that he's willing to put in lots of money with. After adding on for 10,000 more, we pick up Jack 3 of clubs under the gun in an 8-handed bomb pot. All players put in 300 each and we go straight to a flop. The dealer puts out Jack 4-3 with 2 hearts. We've got top and bottom pair. It checks to Berkey in the cutoff. He makes a tiny bet of 300. The button calls. The small blind has big plans to take this one down. He raises to 2,500. This could be a setup for us to lose a lot of money if we're up against a set or Jack 4. There are too many draws out there for us to flat and give the cutoff and button decent odds to stay in while they're in position. I re-raised to 5,500. Taking down the pot without seeing an additional card wouldn't be a bad result. The cutoff and button fold. The action's back on the small blind. We'll be getting it in with him if we need to. He takes one last look at his cards before deciding to part ways with them. The small blind folds. We win it. The table wants to see what the run out would have been.
Can I see the turn, please?
No! Oh, I turned. Out.
A big pot is pushed our way. The button flopped a straight draw with 6-5 and would have gotten there on the turn. A re-raise works out. Here we look down at king 10 suited in the cutoff. Under the gun raises to 300. Under the gun +1 calls. Suited Broadway cards are going to be thrown into the 3-bet bin quite often for us. We have playability and removal to strong hands that might 4-bet us. I re-raise to 1,700. Whenever we're putting on a squeeze, we're mostly concerned about getting through the initial pre-flop raiser. Under the gun folds. It's looking promising for us that our move is going to get through. Under the gun +1 is taking longer than I'd like as he contemplates whether or not to call for 1,400 more. Ultimately, He calls. There's already 4,000 in the middle as we go heads up to the flop in position. It comes queen 7-5 rainbow with 1 spade. We don't have much except an over and some backdoor draws. The opponent checks. There are a lot of cards that can help us out, including any spade or face card. I'd like to retain control of the pot while we take a stab at it. I bet 1,300, about 1/3 pot. Under the gun +1 is perhaps considering putting in a check raise. If he does, it's going to work because we've got no value at the moment. Rather than do anything too crazy, the opponent folds. We didn't get our squeeze through pre-flop, but our plan works out better than expected. We were stuck about 9,000 at the low point. We've clawed back to almost even. We're not settling for even today though. We're in it to book a big win. It's time for another bomb pot. We've got 8-4 hearts in the hijack. This one's 7-handed. The flop comes 10-8-5 with 2 hearts. We have middle pair and a flush draw. It's a strong combo. Under the gun makes a small bet of 600. His name's Ralph. Ralph's mom is an occasional viewer of the channel. She's probably already made a comment about how many pocket pairs and sets we've made. I'm more than happy to see a turn for 600 when our hand has so much potential. I call. We're not the only player that has a piece and wants to see the turn. The big blind calls as well. 3 of us are advancing. The turn is the king of spades. It doesn't help us at all. The big blind checks. We're not going to be seeing another card for cheap. Under the gun, cocks back and fires for 3,000. With 2 opponents, our situation is trickier. We may not have as many outs as it might appear. For instance, one opponent could have a better flush draw, and the other may have 2 pair or a set, and we could actually be drawing dead. Still, it's too difficult to let go of such a powerful hand. I call. The big blind appears to have an easy choice. He quickly goes to his cards and folds. I doubt that he had a flush draw. He likely just had a straight draw or maybe a pair of 10s. The river is the 5 of spades pairing the board. Under the gun slows down and checks. We have showdown value and can still win if we're up against higher hearts. I check back. Under the gun reveals that he flopped 2 pair with 10-8 offsuit. Ralph makes his mom proud and gets the win. We were at least drawing live when we called the large turn bet. Unfortunately, we don't improve to hit a flush or trips. Ralph rakes in a significant pot of about $10,000. The very next hand we're dealt king 8 of spades in the hijack once again because the button doesn't move after a bomb pot. I raised it 300. The cutoff is a recreational maniac. He 3-bet jams for 2,300. Matt Berkey is the only dude at the table crazier than the cutoff. Both players seem to have some personal history, which causes Matt to go after the player in the cutoff with extraordinarily light hands. He cold calls the 3-bet. This exact situation happened previously, except Matt cold called a jam for even more money with 8-6 of diamonds. We're ahead of Matt's range. I'm happy to mix it up. I call for 2,000 more in position to give some action. When you're in these private games, it's important to get involved as much as possible, and that means occasionally doing it in situations like these. 3 of us are seeing the flop with the cutoff all in. It comes queen jack 6 with 2 spades. We've got a flush draw with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw. Berkey checks. I doubt that he has pocket queens or jacks, otherwise he would have 4-bet to isolate the cutoff. It's currently a dry side pot. I'd like to change that in case we can hit a spade. I take a small stab for 1,300. I imagine Berkey will fold pocket pairs below a jack that didn't improve. He calls, meaning he's either got a draw or a queen or jack of some sort. The turn is the king of diamonds, putting another flush draw on the board. Berkey checks. The Broadway draw gets there, as does 10-9, so we could be drawing slim or dead. I don't want this pot to blow up too much. We need to make sure that we see a river card. I check back. The river is the 8 of diamonds. We drill 2 pair, but the backdoor flush draw gets there. Berkey can have all sorts of combos that have us beat, so I'm not incredibly excited when Matt bets 7,000. He could have a hand like queen jack that we're beating, but that might be it. I just can't get away, even though I don't love seeing the large bet size. I call anyway. Berkey was obviously going for value with a strong hand, but we have the winner.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, Brad.
Our read on Berkey pre-flop is correct. He was going after the cutoff light. We had him crushed and get a fortunate run out to not only win 5 figures from him, but we also beat the cutoff who jammed with ace-queen offsuit. He's not happy that he lost after flopping top-top. We win it all to now be up 5,000 on the day. No lead is safe when you're playing with nutballs though, especially when you've decided to join the nutballs. We're dealt jack 10 suited in the big blind with a straddle to 200 on. Berkey raises to 1,000 from the button. We can call or 3-bet. When we're up against a bigger raise size like here, we won't be 3-betting as much, so I call for 800 more. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 8-7-6 rainbow. We've got a gutter with 2 overs. I check. Even though there's a good flop for our range, Matt isn't letting up. He bets 1,000. We've got enough going on with our hand that we can justify seeing one more card for that price. I call with hopes of drilling the 9 for the nuts. The turn is the jack of clubs instead. We improved a top pair to go along with our straight draw. I check. Matt needs to get revenge. He goes with an overbet sizing of 6,000. He could possibly have a straight, set, or 2 pair, but when he goes this large, it feels like he's trying to get me to fold. Maybe he picked up a club draw or is continuing to blast with any type of non-paired suited combo containing a 9 or 10. I can't let Berkey bluff me off a top pair. I call to see the river, hoping that we can improve. The river is the 8 of clubs. Trip 8s now beats us, but I'm mostly just worried about the flush draws getting there. I check. Berkey considers me to be a generally tight player, so he could potentially give up on his bluffs, or he might be more willing to bluff, thinking that I could overfold. Berkey bets 10,000. The turn bet, we were obligated to call, but the board changed and Berkey is still betting. This would be a good time to get away. After everything I've seen from Berkey in this session and in previous ones, I just can't do it. I call. Berkey flopped the straight with 10-9 of diamonds. He wins a big pot of almost $40,000. I get got hard. I obviously gave away a lot of money that I didn't have to, but 5 figures is nothing compared to what I'm giving away in this free roll on ClubWPT Gold on March 25th. I'm giving away 159,634 sweeps coins, which are redeemable for cash at 1-to-1 with the US dollar. If you've signed up at any point to the brand new site for US players using promo BRAD, you're eligible for the free roll in one of 2 ways. You can either play 1,000 hands in sweeps coins games, which will give you 5,000 chips to start, or you can purchase any gold coins package for $19.99 or more that comes with 20 sweeps coins, and you'll start with 2,000 in chips. For every 1,000 hands you play in the sweeps coins games, your starting stack will increase by 5,000 up to 100,000 max, so there's a big reward to play more hands at the SC tables. I have more information in the description box below, but this is by far the largest giveaway taking place on the site right now, and it's only for those of you who have signed up using my code, whether you do that right now or if you did it months ago. Oh yeah, one last thing is there's a 5,000 sweeps coin bounty on my head for the player who knocks me out. I'll be streaming my tournament play on the 25th. In the meantime, I'm on the site playing as much as possible in the 1-2-4 and 2-4-8 SC games to try to increase my starting stack for the free roll. Hope to see you on there. After adding on for an additional 20,000, we pick up Ace-King offsuit in the under the gun straddle while we're playing 5-handed. We're in for 50,000 total and stuck quite a bit. Berkey raises to 500 from the button. We have no choice but to punish him for what he did to us earlier. I 3-bet to 2,000. Matt cold called a 3-bet for more than that with Jack 8 suited previously, so it's tough to envision him folding for a whole lot in this situation when he's in position. He calls, we're heads up, really hoping to hit a pair or better, otherwise this could get uncomfortable. The flop comes Queen 7-6 rainbow. As is often the case when we 3-bet and get called while we're playing out of position, we hit nothing except we've got 2 overs. I still take a stab for 1,200 to keep control of the pot and deny equity from other high card hands that we're ahead of. Although I don't expect to win right now all that frequently. Matt calls to see the turn. The dealer puts out the king of diamonds, giving us top. This is a card that's better for our range and actual hand. I bet 3,000 for value. If the board doesn't change too much, I'll be betting the river as well. Matt isn't letting us have it. He calls. I wonder if he has something like king jack or ace queen that we can continue to get value out of. The river is the 5 of clubs. Aside from 9-8 getting there, it's essentially a blank. We're going to go for it again. I bet 7,000. I've already attempted multiple bluffs against Berkey today. He knows that I don't always have to have it, but he tank folds. We win a large pot. I choose to let Berkey know that we were betting for value. The 7 deuce game is on, so Berkey doesn't initially like it when he sees that I'm flipping my cards over because he thinks that he got bluffed and he's going to have to pay me an additional $300.
No! Oh, nice. Knight Ace-7.
Berkey was contemplating calling us with 3rd pair. It would have been great if he found the call so that we could have been $7,000 richer. Instead, we make do with a pot that's quite a bit smaller, but still solid. We pick up 4-3 offsuit while we're playing 3-handed in the big blind against very talented high stakes players. I'll be honest, I'm a dog in this game normally against these particular opponents, but I'm motivated and feel like if I play my best, I've got a shot at not only getting unstuck, but I can still book a nice win since there's a lot of variance in 3-handed play. We're in a boom or bust. I'm in the mood to battle. Even if I lose, playing against this caliber of players will help me improve, especially the next time I'm deep and playing shorthanded at the final table of a tournament. The button raises to 300. Ranges are going to be wide, particularly with the big blind ante and the small blind being just as large as the big blind. I call to defend. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 6-5 deuce rainbow. We flop the nutter butters. I check with plans of putting in a check raise. The button hates it when a plan comes together. He checks it back like a pansy. The turn is the 7 of spades. We're downgraded, but it's unlikely that the button flopped a straight draw and didn't bet it, so I doubt he has 9-8 for a better straight. I'm going to treat this as if we've still got the nuts. I bet 600. Maybe the button has something after all. He calls. We need a blank on the river. The dealer puts out the 5 of hearts, pairing the board. We get downgraded again, but it's not a bad card because there aren't many 2-pair or set combos that improve to a full house that the button would play this way. We're going to continue going for value and treating our hand as if it's the best one possible. I bet 2,500, not having the slightest idea what we could be up against. Maybe a hand like Ace-7. Our sizing's polarizing. We either have it or we're bluffing. The button needs to find out. He calls. We turn over the straight. We didn't get an ideal run out, but it ends up maybe being better than if 2 high unconnected cards came out because we get paid. We're once again on the comeback trail. We're only down 7,000, which isn't a ton in this game. I'm straddling on the button quite a bit to make the game even bigger because I'm on a mission. We are absolutely going to book a win today. Over 8 hours into the session, we're dealt 6-5 offsuit in the big blind. The small blind checks his options. He's a certified European wild man who's been playing in the high stakes streets for a long time. He's a tough opponent who's capable and willing to put us in very, very difficult spots. I check back. The flop comes 8-7-3 with 2 spades. We've got an open-ended straight draw. Small blind checks. Low flops like this would be decent for our range. I bet 400 is a semi-bluff. Small blind calls. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, giving us the low end of the straight. Small blind checks. I bet 800. The small blind doesn't like our sizing. No. He wants to play for more and check raises to 2,800. There's not much of a need to re-raise. We have an incredibly strong hand when only 3 players were dealt in, and people have to fight for pots. The small blind could have a ton of bluffs, or he could have us beat, and we don't want to inflate the pot in that case anyway. I call for 2,000 more, rooting for a blank so that we can catch a punt. The river is the 7 of clubs. It pairs the board, but the flush draw misses. Small blind shuts down with a check. We're too strong to check back. I bet 3,500. The small blind folds. He says that he had queen 10, and if the river was a blank, he was going to overbet shove for about 25,000. We would have destroyed him to be up $20,000 on the session. The 7 pairing the board costs us dearly. We're down, but only stuck 4,000. We pick up king 3 suited in the small blind during a 3-handed bomb pot. The flop comes 9-4-3 rainbow. We've got bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. I check. The big blind takes a stab for 300. Doesn't mean anything. You could have all sorts of hands that we're potentially ahead of. The button calls. We can't be folding a pair with the price that we're getting. I call. All 3 of us are advancing. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. I check. No one loves what they're holding too much. The big blind and button check as well. The river is the 3 of diamonds, giving us trips. It's very possible that one or both players checks for pot control on the turn with a hand that they want to get to showdown with. We can't allow this to check through again. I bet 2,500 for value and to punish non-believers. The big blind folds. The button snap calls. We turn over our trips. We've got the best hand and we get paid. The button is in disbelief that we hit such a beautiful river card. He reveals that he river trips as well. We smash the case 3 to get all the money. Our overbet works out well. We're running great 3-handed. Remember, we're in for 50,000 total, and right now we've got 49,300 in front of us. We're basically even. It's probably not a bad idea to rack up after being down 15,000 earlier today to now being down a much more manageable number with a higher concentration of formidable opponents. I'm not doing it though. We're not here to book small losses. We're here to win. We look down at ace-8 offsuit in the big blind. The button raises to 300. We have an easy decision with what could be the best hand. I call. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes deuce, deuce, deuce. Usually when that happens, it's going to be a rainbow flop as it is here. I check. There's a much better flop for the button as the pre-flop aggressor. He can have all the overpairs, and he knows that we won't have any of the high ones. He bets 200. Ace high is way too strong to fold. I call to see what develops. The turn is the 6 of hearts. It's a blank. I check. the button goes way larger with a bet of 1400. It's kind of a nightmare. Does he actually have us beat with an overpair like he's representing, or is he leaning into his range advantage with a bluff? If he's bluffing, which he should be doing a lot, he's not going to be doing it with better ace-high hands. He's going to be doing it with hands that have little to no showdown value, like queen highs and worse. It's too likely that he's got air. I call to go to war. The river is the 9 of hearts. The backdoor flush draw gets there that we have removal for, but that doesn't matter because with 3 deuces on board, it's easy for the opponent to have a full house like he's been representing. I check, really wanting to see a check back so that we can get our ace-high to showdown. We don't get the check back. The button unloads the clip with a bet of 4,000. He's representing deuces full of 9s or better. Mostly, he's representing an overpair. Like I mentioned before, we've got to fight for pots when we're 3-handed and things don't feel right. I call. The button has pocket 10s for a very strong full house with his overpair to the board. We pay him off. In hindsight, it's easy to wish that we folded to the turn bet, but when you're in the middle of the game, scrapping for each pot, not everything is as clear. It cost me a lot of money and causes me to be back down a good chunk. Next we're dealt 6-3 offsuit on the button. I straddled to 200 to increase the pot while we have position and can act last. Small blind limps in. It's the same opponent from the previous hand who wrecked me. The big blind folds. This is a spot that I've studied, and we're actually supposed to raise our offsuit trash hands at a high frequency in this situation. I raise to 1,000. Small blind calls. We're heads up in position. The flop comes Jack 9-5 rainbow. I know. You're probably just as shocked as I am that we didn't smash it after raising with 6-3 offsuit pre-flop. Small blind checks. We've got to try to take a stab in order to steal what's in the middle. I bet 700. Small blind accepts the terms that if he matches the bet, he'll be able to see at least one more card. He calls. The turn is the 4 of diamonds, spicing things up by giving us an open-ended straight draw, though ordinarily it's going to be a blank. Small blind checks. With all kinds of draws out there, we're going to continue with our story that we've got a monster since we have the range advantage and potential to hit a strong hand. I overbet 4,000. We don't want to get called, but if we do, we have a backup plan. Small blind has taken a lot longer than I'd prefer. I wanted to see a snap fold. He's in the tank for a long time. Finally, he folds.
Alright, fuck you up on that one, James.
You did. Let's river.
You see the river? Oh! What'd you have? A7? Oh shit. Well, I don't make any more money then.
Our overbet on the turn got the opponent off of ace-7 of diamonds. He had a much better hand with his flush draw, but it wasn't quite worth it for him to try and go for it. The river deuce would have given us the backdoor nuts, but we wouldn't have gotten any additional money because the opponent would have ended up with air. It's a fun hand, although I can't help but wish that we wouldn't have hit the river. Here we pick up queen jack offsuit in the small blind. The button raises to 300. I call for 200 more to see the flop. We're heads up out of position. It comes queen jack deuce rainbow. We flop an absolute monster with our 2 pair. I check. There's a great flop for the button's range. He puts out a continuation bet of 500. There isn't a ton to be worried about other than straight draws. I consider check raising, but instead I call to slow play. The turn is the jack of spades, giving us the second nuts. I check. This may be too good of a card for us and our range after we check call the flop. It's going to slow the button down. He checks back, which he might do with some queens. The river is the 7 of clubs. It's a beautiful brick. We still have the second nuts. As long as we're not up against pocket queens, we'll have the winner. We've got to punish the button if he checks back with a queen. I bet 3,200. It's a large overbet, which we'd have the green light for with a lot of misdraws after the opponent checks back the turn. The opponent isn't folding. I can't expect him to raise us since we've got the whole board covered and we went big. He's taking his time with this decision. I just want to see a call so that we'll be completely out of the hole. I've been aggressively fighting for pots to continuously increase our stack in some smaller hands before this one, so we're almost even again. The button just can't find the call. He reaches for a stack. He's not grabbing calling chips though. He puts in a raise to 10,700. I wasn't anticipating that at all. Maybe he rivered a full house with pocket 7s, or maybe he has queens full. We're not going to call with the second nuts. The opponent only has 11,000 remaining in his stack. We have him covered. I jam for 21,700 effective. If we're beat, we're going to get snap called. We fade the snap, so we for sure have the best hand. Now we have the tough task of trying to get paid by worse. It's difficult for the opponent to think that pocket 7s could even be good here, unless he gives me credit for being a complete lunatic. I made some wild plays in my day, and the fact that I'm 9 hours into a session makes me all that much more capable of doing something insane. I couldn't be rooting for a call more. There's no snap fold, so he has to have something with value. After 4 full minutes of tanking, the opponent finally folds. I like the guy, but I can't show him this one. There's too much in the middle. I return my cards face down as we win a pot of over $23,000 towards the end of our session. We've grinded so hard today. We were stuck piles, we got out of the hole, then we were stuck piles again, all before getting out of the hole here. Now we're up several $1,000s with this one coming towards us. I play it for another 40 minutes, but I'm exhausted. The whole session length is over 10 hours. It's time to rack up a win of $8,550. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. This was really a tough mental battle to get through some really difficult times and then to claw my way out of the hole multiple times, and then finally we book a win of $8,550, which is awesome. Don't forget, I'm still giving away 10% of each cash game win I have to you guys, so I'll be drawing a winner for $855 this week if you sign up to ClubWPT Gold using promo Brad. Also, don't forget about that massive free roll for those of you who have signed up using my code for $159,634. It was just gonna be $100,000 originally, but then I won that 5K event at the lodge a little over a week ago, and I added my entire payout to this free roll to say thanks to you guys for watching and supporting the channel for, you know, over 8 years now. So it's just been a blast, and you know, I'm gonna do a lot more cool things for those of you who have supported me and who have signed up using my code going forward. All right, guys, good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.